part of this is that it's weeding out people who don't align with this. Like that's why these statements really add value, is that hopefully you find employees and customers and partners that like really believe in what you're trying to offer and want to be with you. And if they don't, then there's the door.
Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Brand, where we talk about business and branding and wherever else the bourbon takes us. I'm Matt, and this is Hien. We're your boys from Huck Finch Branding, back for another episode of Bourbon and Brand. We're still thoroughly enjoying this Fox River bourbon from A2 Distillery. Thinking about what we might try next, so hit us up in the comments if you're a bourbon connoisseur and have one that we should try. Try to keep it under the Pappy Van Winkle price range if you can. We'll get there.
And as always, if you're enjoying the content and whatever these two randos are talking about, subscribe to the show. We would appreciate that so much. And ring-a-ding-ding that bell.
Ring it.
So, cheers.
Cheers to another episode.
I wish we could say the show is sponsored by Carhartt, since we're both rocking our Carhartt beanies, but we're not. But
it could be.
Yeah, wide open. We're waiting for you, Carhartt.
Yeah, exclusively waiting for Carhartt, apparently.
Everybody else, you can go after yourself. Carhartt all the way.
That's right. Unless you're interested in sponsoring us. In that case, still hit us up.
Yeah. Was it from Dumb and Dumber? It's like, pick them up.
Yeah, whatever. We're wide open. It's a free-flowing show, obviously. But we'll try to get it back on the rails. Today we wanted to kind of talk about a topic that came up this week for us around different types of statements. And what we mean by that are, like, you hear purpose statement, mission statement, vision statement, whatever. Vision stories, whatever other kinds of things we've all kind of heard out there. And they can be pretty confusing what the actual reason or purpose is behind each statement, like who they're for, what they're trying to guide. So like we were talking about this yesterday, I think you did a little research, and it's like there's no accepted, like, this is how to do it kind of version of this. So we thought we could at least clarify how we think about it, and maybe it could give a framework for any viewers out there to use with a little less confusion.
Yeah, exactly. So again, just to repeat, like, this is how we view these statements and how to use them and how they could be meaningful for your business. This is by no means the Bible for this. So if you're gonna hate, feel free. But we're letting you know right now, like, we're just giving our opinion about how to use it and how we've seen them being valuable for companies.
And I'll add my 2 cents to that. 2 things you should know about us: we're really humble and we're always right.
Yep.
So just if you take anything away from this episode, remember that. So maybe we can start with a couple of, like, just bullet point kind of definitions of these different things. One thing, it would be weird, I think, to us to not start with purpose statement. This is one.
Why do you say that?
Why do you say that? I'm glad you asked. What a great co-host. We are, like, it's kind of, it's not our secret sauce necessarily, but it's something, like, we sort of require in our projects because we think it helps set the tone for everything else downstream from it. So the purpose statement to us is kind of the philosophical and motivational statement that you make. It should be kind of clear and direct, but ultimately it's why does your company exist? Like, just establishing that right at the top, like, why does it exist? Why does it need to exist? And how does it affect the world? Kind of hitting that at the top level.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, a lot of this kind of comes from our background in general, like, having myself study Buddhism and you study philosophy, but from the very get-go of us starting Chill Pill, which is another thing that we do, because, again, we're prolific. We do everything.
Prolific, dynamic human beings.
It was a lot about, creating successful, good habits. Yeah. And what we found, you need a reason why you're doing something. Like, to lose weight, that's great and all, but there has to be something greater than just the idea of, like, I need to shed some pounds, right? So we've carried that over to Huck Finch, because we found that the most successful habits have been the ones that have been grounded in a very strong why. Again, another proponent for this is Simon Sinek. Start with why.
Yep. He has a TED Talk that's been probably already viewed by you at some point, like 8 trillion views, I think, is roughly the math on that.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, like, it can be a hard thing to boil this down into a statement, like one or two sentences.
Yeah.
But where it's like sort of more like functionally valuable, if you're into that, you're thinking it's kind of like this like touchy feely kind of a statement is it once you make the decision on that, like every other decision is just sort of a waterfall effect. It's like, does it align with that? If not, even though Hien came up with incredible verbiage or something for the mission statement, if it doesn't roll up to that statement, like it sounds cool, but it's wrong.
Right.
And it's really nice to have that sort of like compass through the process of that you start to line up these next statements into. And kind of the next one, I guess we're going through the hierarchy of that is we try to set that purpose statement and get to the mission statement, which I think is the most sort of common term.
Yep.
Like every company, I think, has a mission statement. It might, by our definition, be a purpose statement or a vision statement, but they probably the most commonly used term.
Yeah, that's the how, right? And then that's how we distinguish the difference between purpose and mission. Is you maybe have a purpose, which is your why, but how do you live this purpose now? And this is what the mission is, and it gives you like the rails in which you operate your business in order to fulfill this purpose.
Yeah, and it's kind of that interesting middle ground one where it's about now, what we're doing now, and then how that can project into the future as well, and that helps to provide some of those constraints and guidelines you mentioned for like management and staff that are out there trying to deliver this mission to whichever audience the mission is pointed at.
Yeah, and this is where you can add things like who your actual audience is and the types of products or services you offer, whether you want to get super specific or kind of vague to capture like a category. This is where that sits, because if your mission is to serve the healthiest farm to table food, but all of a sudden you now start offering taxi services, you're way off base, and you probably need to like scrap that service. Because it's just going to confuse people, and we're like, why in the hell are we now a taxi service on top of serving awesome food?
Right, and kind of like how you illustrated that goes back to what we talked about in the purpose statement a little bit. It's like it might be a great business idea to have a taxi service, but if it is in conflict with your purpose, it doesn't really align with it. It's not. It doesn't make any logical sense for what you stated in your mission. It's probably a different company. And if you kind of do get a little bit too far outside of those constraints and guidelines, it will definitely confuse your team, and certainly confuse like your biggest fans and your audience, especially if it's in conflict in some obvious way. So again,
with that said, Huck Finch Cab Services coming Q2 2020.
That's right. It's our bread and butter offering.
All this is a ploy in order to get there.
It has no scalability because we're like the only two available drivers. It's a terrible idea, but we're doing it. But yeah, it is that thing where it's like it can be in conflict of, for your staff, why they work there. They might now feel like it doesn't make any sense. And what that ultimately can lead to is it starts to immediately feel like a bottom line business. So it's like, well, why would we do this? It doesn't align with anything we've talked about for my last 5 years. The only explanation is to like get more money.
Right.
And that's like especially increasingly with millennials and younger, like we're looking for ways to connect with what we're doing, and that connection can be broken so quickly, even though you might have taken like 5, 10, 20, 50 years to build to that point. It's a fragile sort of thing when you start to do things that are in conflict.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it. This is a part of the reason why coming up with these statements is so difficult, is that you have to look inward. You're looking at the man in the mirror, as Michael Jackson would say, and you have to say no to things that may sound cool, may sound like opportunities, but maybe too much on the periphery of what you are. They're tangential. They may not even touch on what you want to do, and you basically have to say, "This is cool, but this isn't us." Right. So this is part of where the struggle and challenges with doing these. But then the last thing we have is the what, which is the vision. So now that you know why you exist, how you operate, what does the future look like? What does like success look like when the purpose and the mission comes true? So you want to be able to paint a very clear picture of what success looks like if you're able to achieve your goal of meeting your mission and living your purpose.
Yeah, and this like again, like operationally and who it's for, it helps you guide those day-to-day decisions, like for your other management teams and things like that. Like these are so helpful to remove friction and everyone can understand why decisions are made. Again, as long as it's not in conflict with it. But those guidelines are so helpful for every little day-to-day meeting and decision that happens because you know what the mission is, you know what the general purpose is, and this vision statement kind of rounds out that trio, letting you know ultimately we should be aiming to end up here.
Yeah.
And if your management team or your staff or other things are doing things like they do the taxi company thing, just like this is not, doesn't make sense in the mission, and it nowhere in the vision of where we're going in the future aligns with that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about. A moment ago, you were talking about like this isn't us, and I thought that's an interesting point because if you're entrepreneurial at all or you've started a lot of businesses, it might be another business or another brand,
Right.
and you don't want to confuse like your individual self with this brand that you build, especially if you've grown into other people that are there for this reason. Like it's not the time to just like I have a new business idea. I'm a crazy entrepreneur that like goes nuts. Like Virgin pulls that off somehow,
Right.
but they also have a pretty wide open like template for what they're going to
Yeah.
do. So that kind of popped in my head. It's an interesting thing if you are idealistic and have all sorts of ideas all the time.
Yeah.
Make sure that that's not just a you thing and it does support the brand if you decide to do something that seems different. Make sure everyone understands how that fits.
Yeah. So the way that we like to think about mission and vision is that the mission grounds you and like what you are, who you are, what you do. But what the vision does is it inspires you. That's the thing that gets people out of the bed, knowing like that's where we're headed. That's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's our tomorrow. That's how we put a dent in the world. So an analogy that we like to use for this, and we use an analogy a lot for a lot of things, but is basically going on a road trip, right? So your why, your purpose is like why are you even going on that road trip? The how is how are you going? What car are you using? If you're going in a car, you could be in a motorcycle. If you're going alone, whatever that may be. And the vision is when do you know the road trip's over? What's the destination? What are you going to find there? So kind of that's a way to kind of frame purpose, mission, and vision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you pulled like an example that we can share with people just to give some kind of application to the things that we've talked about. So I'll let you kind of jump into that a little bit.
Yeah, so bear with us on this one. I'm going to have to read this just to make sure we got this right. So if you are familiar, there's a brand called Disney.
Don't do it wrong. We wouldn't want to tear the whole Disney brand down here on our show.
What is their purpose? Like broadly, their purpose is to create happiness. I think a lot of people would probably agree that's at the end of the day a lot of what they're trying to do. Their mission is to entertain, inform, and inspire people through the power of unparalleled storytelling as the world's premier entertainment company. So there's a lot to digest there. One, first of all, it's a little bit long, which is fine because again, this is kind of the thing that grounds you. You can talk about how you do things, who you serve, and they really laid it out there. Like they are an entertainment company. So everything that they do should be around entertainment, right? So it'd be weird if they were doing something that's not related to that. And even if they decide to open up Disney Airlines, I mean, they have Disney Cruises, and that's still entertainment for them as long as they provide entertainment there. And their vision is to be the world's leading producer and provider of entertainment and information.
As you said that, one of the things that popped into my mind that kind of helped me rationalize some of the things that they've done. They're such a big company now. Like I think you can tell a lot of these things from the public with what they acquire. It's like a different type of thing. If you have a small company, you're probably not like gobbling up other entities and things like that. But you look at like thinking even back to Pixar, like it makes a lot of sense that they would invest and acquire Pixar because of like that storytelling word kind of hit there. It's like it was a whole new type of animation and way to tell stories, and an excellent medium for telling stories. So it almost like looking at it now, it's like it'd be bizarre if Disney didn't own Pixar. They seem very synonymous, and I think that's a big part of the reason is I'm not like a Disney like huge fan or anything, but it's like it makes a lot of sense even just looking at them as a brand. You start to look at the different things they've acquired recently and things that they haven't acquired. And it seems like it pretty much lines up. I'm at least not sitting here and be like, weird move by Disney, but which is pretty impressive given how huge Disney is. Like I say that not even really probably understanding how huge they are, but the Pixar one definitely kind of jumped out just thinking historically about how obvious of a fit that sort of is. Like having that story, it'd be hard for them to like we talked about how big they've sort of arrived at their vision because they've done so well. But if Pixar existed separately from them, you could maybe at least in that realm be like, oh, I think Pixar might be the premier, like at least an animation storyteller. So interesting to think about it, at least for me that way.
Yeah. We have Disney Plus, and we just like tiered it up with Hulu, and it was crazy kind of seeing like all the content that they own, like Nat Geo. I didn't know that.
Yep.
But again, like that's a premier thing. Like National Geographic offers a lot of information, so and that aligns really well with like the mission and the vision of what they want to be, and it serves that purpose. Also, today's episode seems like we're just trying to get like as many sponsorships as we can.
Disney,
Disney.
It's like if this isn't premier entertainment, I don't know what is.
If this isn't shameless, I don't know. This is the personification of shameless.
Yeah. Well, when you talked about this as the example, it's kind of like I don't know. I don't really know anything about Disney. I'm a pretty weirdly outside the Disney loop. Like even in terms of the Avengers stuff, I've seen some of it. Like it's not.
You're just not a happy person.
Yeah, I'm evil, right? Like, it's like that's how good their branding is. Like, if you're with Disney, you are straight evil.
Yeah.
But where I was kind of going with that is like I actually still know a ton about Disney. Even as you mentioned Nat Geo, I'm like I know that they have like the Safari World thing happening at Disneyland World. Whatever it is, the one in Florida.
Yeah.
So it's like there's even like a connection there where they do have like this kind of live animal experience.
Right.
You're like, oh yeah, Nat Geo. Like it starts to connect. So interesting. Like
ESPN. I mean, when you think sports entertainment or just sports information, it's ESPN.
Definitely closer to entertainment than sports.
Yeah.
But
that's a whole other episode of us ranting on ESPN.
Never air.
Yeah. Our areas of grievances.
That's right.
With ESPN.
Once a year, like end of the year, we can do a full areas of grievances. So we got to wait for it. But I think it is good that it kind of pulled out Disney because it does speak again to you. They've done a pretty good job with these statements. And I'm the evil person in the room that would love to kind of pick it apart, but they're pretty successful for a reason, and it's only because of these three statements.
Exactly.
No, but it is, I think, in large part, especially when you're that size. I know a fair amount of Disney employees from when I lived in California. Most of them pretty into it, pretty excited, even if they weren't super diehard fans. They do kind of have that experience of working there where it's clearly a Disney sort of thing, and it does speak a lot to their brand equity, and it's not easy to do that for I don't even know how many thousand people work for them. But it does come downstream from something, and I would bet it's these kind of sit at the top of how they do this. So even though it's not a brand we spend a lot of time with or spend a lot of money on, we still feel it, we still experience it in everyday life, whether it's through ESPN or Nat Geo or on Hulu or whatever it might be. It's pretty impossible to not go for entertainment and watch a movie or a show or something that Disney isn't involved with. So can't argue the premiere thing. You really can't.
No, you can't. So it looks like we're both coming down to the end of our glass of this Fox River Bourbon. So we're into the last sip now, giving people some final thoughts on things. So what are some final thoughts that you want to share with our audience of one?
This is directly to Mom, obviously. But this kind of came up out of a real working reason, and we were like, this would be a great thing to talk about. And really, for me, where it came from is there's all these different terms, all these different things thrown around. People come to us for, we need a mission statement, we need a vision statement, whatever it is. They don't really literally probably know what they mean. They're trying to solve this problem. They need to get clarity around something. They're about to grow, and they want to make sure that they have this bolted down. They need to get consensus, whatever it might be. There's a lot of problems they're trying to solve with this. But I think at the end of the day, it was like, really important to make sure that each of these statements, whether you do all three, we think all three are good, they have distinct purposes, is for you understanding what purpose they each serve. Because it can be a dangerous thing to just be like, we need all these things. I read it on like Harvard Business Review. You got to have each of these statements, but you aren't really sure why, because you can accidentally come up with 3 different mission statements.
Right.
Like they all are for the same, and they all sound cool. And the danger is that like we could write 3 for Huck Finch, and you really liked the second one, and I really liked the third one, and the first one's on our website.
Yeah.
It's a problem, even for a small business. We don't have a ton of employees kind of like intentionally, but it's already a problem for people that interact with us, whether they meet you or me or see what's on the website. So our mission is now 3 different things, and it's kind of like, you go to your mom for the things that your mom's into, you go to your dad for your things that your dad will say yes to, and then you end up with not really like a clear mission at all. It's just kind of 3 cool sounding statements. So make sure whether you do 1, 2, 3, or 8, that they each serve a purpose and to help guide your organization in some specific way. Otherwise, pare them down, have 1 mission statement, and that's what you feel like you need, and go forward. That's much better than kind of having confusion. So I think for me, that was a big takeaway as we thought through this.
Yeah. I think what we've seen, obviously, ideally, you have these things laid out and locked down at the beginning of starting a business. Obviously, that's the ideal world. A lot of times, what we've seen from our customers have been these things start to really matter as they grow and scale, and they're not on the front lines anymore.
Yeah.
And they're bringing in people, and they don't want to lose why they started something, or they feel like they built a great culture, and it could get lost if this stuff isn't codified.
Yeah.
So where I want to go with that is that since that's the most likely scenario, is that you already have employees, that there is an importance of bringing them in at some point. You don't need them in for, if you're the founder, you don't need them in like to come up with a purpose, because that's your job, right? That's your job to figure that out, why you started this thing in the first place, what problem were you trying to solve or are trying to solve. That has to come from you. It has to come from your heart. It comes from your soul. And so you need to be the one to own that and be okay with that. The fact that not everybody in your company is gonna like feel that that's the purpose of the company. That's cool. Part of this is that it's weeding out people who don't align with this. Like that's why these statements really add value. Is that hopefully you find employees and customers and partners that like really believe in what you're trying to offer and want to be with you. And if they don't, then there's the door.
Yeah.
Right. So. But at the same time, it is important to get buy-in from folks. Yeah. So as you work on these things, let people know that you are. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
Don't do this behind closed doors and then just surprise people. Let people know why you're doing this, why it's important to you, why strategically this matters to the company, and support efforts where it aligns with your purpose, mission, and vision.
Yeah.
If your mission is to be purpose-driven, which we would love, and employees have ideas about how you guys can be more purpose-driven, like support that. Find a way to support it, because if you knock it down, then all you're doing is just writing words down, and you're not living it, and you become disingenuous, and all of it's for naught. Like this stuff, it isn't just something you just do. Like it really does matter, and it could do a lot more harm than good if you just think it's something that you have to do and just like write it down and just file it away. Like if you write this down, you have to like commit to living it, or else you're just lying to people.
Yeah. And one of those, like, I think maybe the biggest commitment, especially if you're a little further down the road, like you're successful, at least from a financial standpoint, you're trying to get back to the core purpose of why you started it, you didn't articulate in the beginning. There's something that comes up a lot, which is, well, if we say this purpose out loud, we all agree in this leadership room, like this is why we exist, this is what we're all about. But if we say that out loud, some people might leave. Like our top salesperson might leave, or our top developer. Like we all know, like in tech, like it's hard to find a good developer. It's a scary thing. But at the end of the day, you have to be prepared to lose people that don't align with it. Because like that's the most difficult way to live the mission. It's like sort of like all fun and games when you're at the like company event and everyone's like cheering and they're all for it. But if there are 2 people in the back of the room that are thinking like, this is nonsense. I'm going to do my own thing. Like, they will be potentially harming the company more than they're helping it, even though they're highly skilled. They could even be a great person. It's just not their thing.
Yeah.
That's like the commitment from a leadership standpoint, because like anything else, the moment you don't defend this thing you just told everybody is really important, it's not really important. Right. People are paying attention. So if you do the right thing, which you mentioned, communicate that this is happening, you do a great job telling them why this is really important and why leadership and the whole team are spending a time on this. And then it's very obvious that a person doesn't fit there and they're still just like out there doing their thing in the face of what the vision, mission, purpose are. It will lose meaning very quickly. So and it's tough. Like, that's probably the single toughest part of doing this, especially if you have 200 employees or you're down the road. Like, each head you sort of add, each butt you put in a seat makes it a little bit scarier and a little bit harder to implement.
Yeah, exactly. So in order to kind of start to get that buy-in, like, the thing you can do that we find really simple in an idea, obviously difficult to execute, is as you roll out the purpose specifically, get people to think about, like, how could they see themselves fulfilling this purpose? Because if they can't, then it's fine for them to leave. Like, it's going to suck if you lose, like, your best salesperson, your best developer, whomever. But if you codify this right and you live it right, you're going to create a company that people want to work for. You're going to create a company that people want to buy from and support, and people are going to be clamoring to work for you. That you're going to be more successful than you were with this person who doesn't buy into this. I mean, for us, this is tangential, but like, we've had to say goodbye to bad clients that were our highest paying client, and it sucked to having to do that because of what we were going to lose. But you can't let loss aversion stop you from doing the right thing. And ultimately, like, by saying no to this, we open ourselves up to opportunities for getting the right clients, and it only has been better for us. So it's going to suck in that moment, but trust us, it's going to be okay. So so go out and start doing this. We're going to share. There's a link below to kind of help you start thinking about what your purpose, mission, and vision are. It's kind of macabre, a little dark. It's a little weird because that's what we like to do. And what we want you to do is start with writing a brand eulogy. So imagine a world where your brand doesn't exist anymore, 20, 25 years down the line. You achieved your goal. If someone was to write a eulogy about your brand, what do you want people to say about it? What legacy do you leave behind? And this should start to help you shape, like, what your purpose, mission, and vision are. So definitely check out the link below.
Hit that. And one more thought on that. You kind of shared yesterday that this type of exercise comes from the kind of Alfred Nobel. I think it's a really good illustration. I actually didn't know this until you shared it, but his brother passed away, and at the time, Alfred Nobel had pretty much made his hay, to use a phrase from that era. I don't know, it was like well done or poorly done, but he was known as like the inventor of dynamite at that point. And his brother passed away, but they thought it was him, right? And his eulogy was,
"The merchant of death is dead."
And now we almost all know him as the the namesake of the Nobel Peace Prize. So really interesting how he got there, and he kind of saw that, and obviously I'm sure not happy that his brother had passed away, but he had gotten this opportunity to genuinely see what he would have been known as if he had died at that point, and that caused him to completely kind of change course of his life and want to leave a different type of legacy. So inventor of dynamite to Nobel Peace Prize, pretty powerful how he changed course once that was out in front of him. And this exercise can, if you do it like earnestly and vulnerably, can be that powerful for you too. So highly suggest it. It's well worth the time.
So thank you for sitting here and listening to two dudes talk about vision, mission, and purpose. We are done with our bourbon, so this episode is done. So again, click the link below to do the exercise. Again, obviously subscribe and share the show. If you're ever in town or in Ann Arbor, hit us up. We'll go grab a bourbon at Ann Arbor Distilling. Enjoy ourselves some Fox River Bourbon here. Make sure to wear your Carhartt hat.
Yep. Watch Disney.
Yeah, Disney.
Those are the ones that like
ESPN,
all about all these things.
Whatever other sponsors we have
Yeah.
that we don't have just yet, but we will have.
All right. Oh, until next time, we'll see you again next week. Let us know also in comments anything you want us to talk about, any bourbons you love that we should try. We'd love to hear from you. So we'll see you again next time.
Yeah. Peace out.
Thanks for watching another episode of Bourbon and Brand. Be sure to leave your questions in comments below so we can get to them in a future episode.
And make sure to subscribe to the show by clicking subscribe below and turn on the bell to get notified of all future episodes of the greatest freaking show about bourbon and branding. Cheers.